Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing individuals from all walks of life who have had to face a sexual tragedy or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what led them to face and conquer the blockages that kept them from fully reconnecting to their inner power and divine sacredness. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search Sacred Stories on iTunes. And to learn more about my coaching and healing services, visit JanieTerrazas.com. I want to thank our listeners for joining us today on the Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today I have the remarkably talented Lina C. She is a poet and a singer-songwriter, an event host, filmmaker, literary editor, and radio content producer for Night Moves, exploration of contemporary sexuality. She will release her first album, Love Renaissance, later this year, along with her first poetry book, Walking on Oceans. You can connect with her via Instagram at Lina, Lina.CEE. I'm so grateful to have you today on the show. How are you doing, Lina?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this today.
Yes, thank you. We met not too long ago and at an event here in San Antonio, and you are very involved in the poetry scene and the arts and the culture scene here in San Antonio. And a lot of what you do, a lot of your music, as well as your poetry, touches a lot on the pain, that you've gone through, the trials and tribulations that you've gone through in life. And you, like many of the other guests on my show, are doing the work to go from survivor into thriver. So tell us a little bit about your story and how and when you started getting into the arts that you do.
Well, when I first started singing, I was singing as a little girl in church, and then I went through school into choir, and I kind of strayed from it for a while, and, I got caught up with the wrong crowd, and they weren't challenging me and pushing me in all the best ways. And I went through some abuse and some trauma during high school. And then I recently, within the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, have really been honing back in on what is my purpose, what is my mission in life, and using my art to kind of not only express myself, but heal myself and connect with people.
Yes. And, that is such a big part of the healing journey, especially when you deal with sex trauma or some type of physical, emotional, it doesn't always have to be physical, just emotional abuse alone can leave some pretty significant scars on us, and it can impact how we show up and how we perceive ourselves and others, and how we sort of move about in the world. Tell us a little bit about exactly what happened to you, and then when you started to see how it was impacting you in the present.
I think that things kind of started, I think, when I was in elementary school. My parents got a divorce, and my mother moved out, and I was still a little girl. I think it was like 8 or 9. And, I didn't realize until just recently what really was happening. But my father told me that I was abandoned by her, and that she didn't really, want to be a mother anymore, and that she was out having fun with her boyfriend, and that was more important than me. Internalized, abandonment became part of my identity, and now I see all of the self-hate that I developed from that. Mm-hmm. And then being in a house, left in a house where I was, my father was an alcoholic, and he grew up in the ways, his father was abusive to his mother, and there was verbal abuse and physical abuse that it carries down through the generations. It's not usually healed within one generation itself. So being in that environment with just so much toxic masculinity, and in an environment where I had no women guides in my life, and I was in a white male-dominated society in my own little microcosm of my house. I had no sisters. My dad didn't really date. I was just kind of isolated. I had no one to walk me through my first period. I was a little girl and I was alone. And I only am now really uncovering how traumatic that was and how that affected me. So I'm in therapy now. I've actually started when I was, before I graduated from San Antonio College a couple years ago. They have therapy. I want everyone to know who goes to any kind of San Antonio College or Alamo College that they do have therapy that's available for free. Well, it's for free. It's within the cost of your tuition is covered. So definitely check into that. In there, they also have a poetry therapy group, which I've become a part of. And they also, another woman told me about the Rape Crisis Center has free therapy as well. So I do attend sessions there as well. And so, growing up in that household, how do I say this? I didn't realize how disconnected from the sacred feminine that I was, because I internalized that my mother had rejected me and my mother didn't love me, so I in turn rejected other females.
Yes.
The self-hate and the toxic masculinity permeated my being, and it was really horrible. And now I realize what was going on, and I'm coming out of that. But getting involved with the wrong crowds, searching for that love from my mother and my father in other people and in men, giving away, my sacredness, my body and my love and my soul, really trying to connect with people who were just, I saw a funny quote. It was stop feeding people who only wanted to go plate, right?
I saw that on your post today.
I thought that was so perfectly said, because, these people are not really going to stick around for the entirety of what is going on. So, we're trying to latch on to people for connection, and we're trying to be loved. All we're doing is really seeking love at the end of the day. And anyways, they're just kind of shallow forms of love that's not really going to quench our thirst, but we're just seeking it. And a lot of it is attention, and a lot of it is, just pain that we're trying to numb, so whether it's getting in with drugs or getting in with men that didn't really care about me or whatever it was, And then in high school, I got pregnant, and it's kind of an interesting story, because I will try to make this quick for the sake of brevity, that I wanted to keep it. Obviously, this is my first baby. I think I just turned 17, and, I thought I was in love, and this man was no good for me, really. I really wanted him. I saw so much potential in him, and I wanted to help elevate him, but he was not interested in elevating himself. He wanted to just have fun or whatever, whatever. So that's my first lesson, and I cannot change people.
Right. That's a pretty young age to learn that lesson, though, because a lot of times we kind of have to go through that again and again before we finally realize that.
Right. Yeah. And perhaps other people have felt that about me. They wanted me to heal when I wasn't fully ready to heal, And so it kind of goes both ways. And so this man had kind of told me that he wanted me to have an abortion, and I was shocked, what do you mean? What? And he explained his reasoning and things, and I went home and I was really heartbroken, and I don't know what it was, for right or for wrong. I just before I really started meditating in the sense of the word, I just kind of meditated on it, really thought, and was, really thinking about what I'm going to do. And I thought about, is this person, this man who I have conceived his child, is this person the one that I want my child to look up to? is this person the one that I want my child to take after? Do I really want to like half of my child's cells to be from him? And honestly, thinking about, he was from an alcoholic family as well, and that was part of the thrill, to be able to go over there with his family and drink, and I'm in high school and I'm just having fun, and we're, you know, doing those kind of things, and there's like not a lot of responsibility. And for me, I was just like, oh, I'm just having fun. How many times that we're like, oh, we're just having fun, not realizing the emotional and the damage that we're doing to ourselves, you know?
That's true.
And so basically after that, I just thought, you know, and what I know now about intergenerational trauma and addiction, like all of their addictions as well would have been passed on to my child if I would have had that child. So I ended up deciding, like, okay, no, this is not the man that I want to make a baby with. So as painful, it was one of the most painful things that I've ever done in my life, the hardest decisions I have ever made, and I chose not to keep that child. And for like, I went into this like really long depression. I was like really sad, not like really overtly sad, but like the inner agony that I was going through for like the past 10 years or whatever since that happened, you know, was really like something internally that I was struggling with. And then going through another abusive relationship after that, and then to a more healthy relationship where we did get pregnant again, and I was probably 26 or so, and it was with a person that I believe was more responsible and more of a healthy-minded individual and stuff. And for whatever reason, I think it was like the PTSD from my abortion and knowing my family trauma and things that I think the stress from all of that really may have contributed to me, or that pregnancy ending in miscarriage. So I don't know, you know, people always say, oh, everything happens for a reason, or, you know, maybe it's good that it was like that. And when someone's going through a miscarriage, that's the last thing you really want to say, you know, is that, oh, yeah, like, it's no big deal, like, brush it off. Like, no, like, I lost my baby, like, I'm hurting, you know. Anyways, so basically, I think that miscarriage, that pregnancy and that miscarriage really triggered a lot of the PTSD that was kind of like laying underneath the surface for me. And I was taking this yoga class before I graduated, and I was like, I took this yoga class so I could relax. And in this yoga class, I'm like crying. I'm crying, and I'm just like, why am I so sad? So I find out about the therapy that is free at the college, and I started to attend it. So I'm like on this self-healing journey. And I also, a couple years ago, I found this wonderful woman online. Her name at the time was Nubia I. Sutton, and she was like a holistic kind of YouTube health practitioner. Now she goes by the name of Lisa Marie Goodson. And she told me about this wonderful woman called Queen Afua who had wrote this book called Sacred Woman, and it's the guide to healing the feminine mind, body, and spirit. And I was gifted this book after telling so many people about it, that I was really excited to begin my own, or continue on my own self-healing journey. And they talk about the womb, like the uterus. The womb of a woman is basically where all emotion comes from. It's where everything comes from. All of our, all of our thoughts, feelings,
desires.
Yes, so it's like I have a desire to sing, for instance, and I suppress my desire to sing. Is basically suppressing it into my womb, and the womb can physically like manifest diseases because our dreams are buried in there. So it, you know, it can surface as endometriosis, or, you know, uterine cysts, or whatever it is that's going on down there, vaginosis, vaginosis, whatever it is. And they say that the equivalent to the womb in a man is his prostate. So, you know, men have that, you know, special organ as well that's going on down there. And if we look at prostate cancer and what's going on with that, you know, there's definitely both sides of the coin for illnesses. But that, you know, we were talking about the sacred circle and the sacral chakra and things. And that's where the womb is. That's our seat of creativity. So it's healing those things. And all of the self-hatred and shame. I had so much shame about having an abortion, and I hid it from the world, and I wouldn't tell anyone, and I lied about it to people who found out. I was like, no, I'm 16 or 17 years old, and I'm just like, I'm so ashamed. And like I said, I didn't have any women really guides in my life. I wasn't close to my mother. I resented my mother. My father, to this day, 20 years or 20 plus years after their divorce, will still like smear my mother's name. And as a young child, he encouraged me to speak ill of her. He would like, if I was like so mad that I would cuss about her or like use curse words, like he would be like, yeah, she is that. And yeah, and if I would cuss at her on the phone, he wouldn't reprimand me. He would like, yep, she is that way, because he was so hurt about her leaving him that he's like, you should hate her too. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing. So that really damaged my relationship with my mother for many years. And I still deal with abandonment issues, even though I know, like we recently talked about it. And, she had no idea that he was telling me that I was abandoned. She did want me. She, maybe couldn't have afforded me the way that my father could have like financially supported me, but she never wanted to leave me there. Like I internalized it as if I was unworthy for her to take with me, with her.
Yes.
Why didn't you take me with you, Mom? Like what? Why would you leave me there? And so I didn't realize how much resentment and bitterness that I had towards my mother for a long time.
Were you like completely estranged from her, or was she sort of in and out of your life, and you had this narrative going on from your dad about what was really happening on her side?
Well, yeah, she was never completely out of my life. We were never really estranged. I always, as much as part of me hated her or was taught to hate her, I still loved her and I yearned for her, and I so desperately wanted her in my life. I admired her. Like my mother taught me how to pray. My mother showed me like the amount of faith in the spirit that my mother has been so influential towards me or in my life. And it's just so crazy how that was like severed at the hands of a man, that he severed that because of his own pain. And I understand why he did that, but that does not make it okay, because he really hurt me. He could never understand how bad he hurt me by convincing me that my mother didn't love me.
Oh, God. And this happens with so many people, where parents have such deep disdain and pain towards that individual that they will risk their child's well-being, their mental and emotional well-being. But it's like you said, they're not conscious really of what it is that they're doing. You shared so much about the difficulties and the tribulations that you were up against as a child. And I know in your work, you've talked a little bit about some of the abuse that you would attract individuals that were going to kind of be abusive. What was that experience like for you, and how were you able to get out of that? Because at some point you finally broke the cycle. So what was that last relationship that was the defining factor for you?
Well, I think that it's kind of an ongoing journey, honestly.
Yes.
And, I think it's gotten to lessening degrees. It's gotten lighter and lighter because I am more loving myself more than anything.
Yes.
But I was attracting people that didn't appreciate my value, that either would verbally abuse me or physically or just neglect me. And that, it went from physical abuse to verbal abuse to just neglect in my 3 past relationships. But I don't think that that's necessarily, in a way, it's not really lightening the load, because they're all so painful. So, maybe I didn't get bruises from being neglected, but it definitely triggered some of the trauma from my childhood. And also but to be able to break out of that one of the most significant moments was actually finding, like, I was sharing my vulnerability. I was being vulnerable with a mutual friend of an ex. At the time, he and I were together, and I was sharing, oh, I'm going to be better this time. I really want to prove to him how much I love him. He's been so good to me, and I need to be that good to him. And she pulls me to the side, and she's like, sweetheart, we don't even know that y'all are together. We have no idea that you're boyfriend and girlfriend right now. Like, he doesn't talk about you like that. And I'm like, what? Like, we just moved in together. Like, I thought he was about to propose and all of these things. So I'm like, all right. So my world was completely shattered. So I was like, all right. So he's been lying to me for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has kind of played out in different ways. I learned so much, and I wish all of my exes the best in life. I just hope that they bloom and they just do all of the things that they want to do. And at the end of the day, I love them all enough to let them go if that's what they wanted to do. I really am grateful for the time that we shared, and I just have to think about it like that, because I can't spend any more time resenting what didn't work out or like shaming myself for what I didn't do or what I did wrong, So I just have to learn from it and grow and do better next time. So
it's great advice, and it would benefit us greatly to really understand this to a greater degree and really learn how to practice, again, that self-compassion that you were saying is so crucial when it comes to transforming and really taking back and stepping into your power, your passion, and your purpose, and realizing that you are worthy of love and you are lovable and that you are here to love. And whether you're in a relationship or not, the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself. And I think you're doing a really good job of embodying that and being a really good example for others. So thank you for being a beacon of light. And I really commend you for taking advantage of those services at your school and for being open and receiving that book when it was delivered upon you, and all that you are doing to help yourself understand how that whole patriarch-matriarch dissonance and fracture, the mother-father fracture took place, and now you're healing your own inner child.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that as a teenager, when you were faced with that decision, that you said something about meditating. And so I was just curious, how long has prayer or meditation been a part of your life?
Oh, all of my life. All of my life. Like I said, I was raised in the church in a non-denominational kind of Christian background. And prayer has always been there. And, it's funny how we come back around to it. When I was going through my youth, I was encouraged to pray and things like that, and I wasn't as close to the Lord or the Spirit, whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. as I am now. And now that I realize its true power and the Spirit that lives within, that I always have connection with, there is nothing that anyone can do that can separate us from that Spirit. Any thought of any kind of separation from the Spirit, that's an illusion. That's an illusion, and it's not true. So when we feel alone, that's a lie. That's an illusion. That, as they would say in the church, that that's a lie from the evil one. Like, that's the enemy talking to you. Like, you cannot believe that. Yes. So the prayer has always been in my life. And I'm definitely getting more accepting that, because I think I had a separation from my faith kind of when, I don't know exactly when, but, through the divorce and through my high school and through the pain of my abortion and my father losing kind of parts of his faith, because when he went through his divorce and God didn't save his marriage, I think he lost some of his blind faith in whatever he believed to be God. So I think that influenced me, and I was like, all right, if God's gonna let all this bad stuff happen, I don't know how much I believe in what, but I think that what happened personally to me is that the same thing that happened to me with Santa Claus. And it's like I realized that Santa Claus is not real, and I got angry about it. But then I came back around and I realized the true meaning of Christmas. And that's kind of what happened with me when I found out, like, the inconsistencies in the Bible and, you know, certain things that I was like, all right, well, I don't know what to do with all of this information that's, like, conflicting. And I didn't know what to do with all of this, like, anger that I had towards that kind of system. So, but I think I've come back around and realized, like, come full circle, like, all right, it's not about, like, religion is man-made and it's human-made, and so humans have flaws, so inherently religion will also have flaws. Like, that's just the name of the game. So I accept that now, and I'm like, all right, that's not really, like, the spirit is greater than one religion. So it doesn't matter about the inconsistencies or the, you know, the little details of these things. Like, the spirit is real. Like, there's nothing we can do to get around that. Like, that, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on really quick, like, through all of this that I was processing, I really became more able to talk about my, you know, like, my mental health issues, like whether that would be my anxiety or my fear of public speaking or my depression, big time. And I had no idea how this was affecting me, because I feel that in my spirit, like, God is calling me to share my story, share my message with the world, and has, you know, blessed me with a gift of songwriting and a decent voice. And I really want to use my gifts to share and to, you know, for people to enjoy them and for people to learn also. So my anxiety and things have in the past, it's been a challenge to let go of those things and to really move into, like, it's held me back in the past from going out and being more involved, whether it be in the poetry scene or on stage with my music or whatever it is. And through my counseling, my self-love kind of journey that I'm on, you know, I'm able to fully embrace myself and forgive myself for whatever that I feel that I have done or what I haven't done, and just move on and just do what I feel that I'm called to do, instead of holding myself responsible or judging myself and holding myself back because of what happened in the past. Now, the past is a teacher. It is a learning tool, and we should learn from it, but it also shouldn't be a prison. So
that's so good. Say that again.
Yeah, you know, the past is a learning tool, but it shouldn't be a prison that we stay in. And it's a self-inflicted prison, as far as, like, you know, we keep ourselves in it and we replay these memories and we shame ourselves. I read a great book. It was called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, and she talks about the shame tapes, and it's like this little kind of like the old cassette tapes or video VHS tapes that we'd pop in, and we just watch our shame, or watch these tapes that, I feel ashamed and embarrassed, and we just kind of freeze up and we can't move past that because we keep on watching these tapes. And, like, that is so non-productive, and it's just really, it is a prison. And you know, forgiveness and compassion, self-compassion, is such a powerful tool, and I don't think that we really talk about that enough, or as much as we should, because of whatever stigma or whatever is holding us back in society. But we could definitely take a page from that book that I read, and it talked about the courage and compassion and connection, and using those three tools for healing and just really to connect with people, have the courage to tell our story. And by telling our story, we're connecting with people, and using compassion on ourselves and others, you know, is really the key to so much healing. Because when we hold a grudge, it just locks up everything, and it's like we can't move forward because we have to hold this grudge, and somebody's got to be accountable for this pain, and you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And in that grudge holding, we're literally robbing ourselves of breath, like you had mentioned, sort of that contraction. And so breath is our spirit. And the breath is what feeds the cells the oxygen that it needs. So we literally diminish our vitality and the light within the body. And that's I mean, it's pretty incredible. And so there's, like you said, so much power in self-compassion. As part of mindfulness is this, self-love. And what is self-love? It's self-awareness, it's self-acceptance, it's doing the work, which is the self-love part of it, so that you can finally get into that place of self-illumination, which is then when you can breathe again and you feel more liberated, from your past. Like you said, it's a teacher, but it doesn't have to be a prison. And that's ultimately what we're doing when we're keeping all of this pain just to ourselves. So I just think it's so important, like what it is that you are doing. Secrecy causes suffering. Shame causes suffering. And it's time for all of us to get real, be vulnerable, because it's a courageous thing to be vulnerable.
That's exactly what she talks about in the book, with the courage to share your story, and the connection is, she also talks about how shame thrives in secrecy, because we cannot have shame when we bring it into the light and own our story. So that's really has helped me to be able to talk about some of these things, is that I can, shame only can survive in secret. If I own myself, own my story, and share it with people, especially in hopes that it will help someone, it combats the shame, and it just really rips it apart. I am not ashamed anymore, because I know that it is written, and I went through that at very least to help someone, by even if it's by telling this story right now. Someone's going to hear it, someone's going to be moved towards healing in some way. I really believe that. So it is written, and no matter what anyone who's listening has ever gone through, I do believe that there is a purpose. Now, I don't think that every bad thing should happen, but I also think that there is, we can use it for the greater good, because it happened. Yeah, it happened and it sucked, but it's all right, well, what can we do with it to make it a positive experience? Yeah. And I really thank you for asking me to come on and share this.
Feel free to let people know how they can reach you and get connected to you. And thank you so much. You're officially a part of the Sacral Circle Sisterhood.
I'm so honored. I appreciate you. Just reach out to me on my Instagram, Lina.C, Lina.CEE. I am putting together my first batch of recordings that will be available on SoundCloud and all of the streaming websites like iTunes and Amazon and all the good stuff. It's going to be called Love Renaissance. It's the rebirth of love, whether that is self-love or love for others. And I'm so happy to be able to move out of this shell that I was in and really step into the fullness of what I feel that I'm called to do and what I want to do, my dreams. Oh my gosh, I couldn't tell you how long I just believed that, not consciously, but subconsciously, I believed that I wasn't worthy of my dreams. I didn't deserve my dreams, or I wasn't able to fulfill them, or there was no way I'm going to accomplish what I want, so it's just a crazy dream, you know what I mean, or whatever. So, and then stepping into it and be well, I do deserve this. Why don't I deserve this? People have done all kinds of crazy things, and they achieve amazing things. So the story of redemption, that theme is amazing, and that's we all can do that. So I'm really excited that people even want to hear what I have to share. I think I like to write poetry and write songs and sing songs, and I'm just happy that people want to hear them and can, enjoy them and jam with me.
Yeah, so and jam with you. Totally. I've jammed with her, and her voice is incredible. Her poetry is out of this world because she's out of this world, and you're super special. I'm grateful that we crossed paths and that we are that our friendship is blossoming, and that we'll get to create some really beautiful projects together to help humanity with their walk in this self-compassion and self-love journey. So again, thank you. And I want to thank our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. And connect with me via our social media pages. You'll find us at the Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be with you.